Up next is the Actress Roundtable. Please welcome to the stage Andy Ortiz, Kathryn, Hahn, Kaylee Reis, June Squibb, and Judith Light.
Oh, wow. All right. Hello, folks. Guys, I'm excited about the energy in this room. I'm excited about the energy on the stage. We are all wearing pop star mics and very excited about it. Thank you all for being here at the Power Women Summit. We are so excited to have you. We are excited to have you ladies on our roundtable. And the fact that we are at the Power Women Summit. Kathryn, I want to start with you because you famously love working with powerful women. You famously love powerful women.
I do.
You do. And you just worked with a whole bunch of them on Agatha All Along.
Yeah.
Yes, please for everybody.
A coven, as it were, of powerful women.
An incredible coven. I feel like as a viewer, I can always kind of tell when things are helmed by women. I can always, I'll hear a line and I'll be like, a woman wrote that. That's real. That sounds like something we would say.
Yeah.
So I want to know from your perspective as an actress when you're on set, what kind of vibe shift happens when you have a show like Agatha? It is female-led. Your showrunner is Jack Schaefer, who's incredible. Mary Lovatos, executive producer. Your whole cast. Tell me how that changes things for you.
It's interesting because I feel really blessed that for most of this, at least chapter of my career that has happened like since having kids, weirdly, has been like, I know, it's like when they tell you it's not gonna happen, that's like when I've started getting the most like nourishing work. I've had the pleasure of working with mostly women, writers, directors, and there is a shift that happens where it just feels like the whole of you is wanted to be brought to the table. And I'm speaking in crazy generalizations because there's a lot of men that have feminine, that come to it with a more female point of view or female energy. But there is something a little less black and white or binary about working with a woman. Like there is not only expected but encouraged a complexity. So that and like an allowance, and so that feels, I guess, would be the thing that feels different. And also like there's not enough safety and just emotional safety, especially being with a group of women. Like that coven in particular, it was like vibrating, like it was buzzing. So you could hear our cackles from a long way away.
Well, and you talk about the whole of you being brought to this project, and that is especially true for you. You got to do so much in Agatha All Along. You got to be this messy witch who's like chaotic at one point, masking her real emotions at various others. Like you really kind of got an embarrassment of riches in terms of what you got to do with the character, which started as just like a side character, an incredible side character in WandaVision.
Yeah, I mean, that's Jack Schaefer, our incredible writer, who also wrote WandaVision. Really, we wanted to start with a woman without her powers, powerless, getting her powers back and finding the truth, finding her largest expression the older she gets, which we also thought was really potent. And it felt very much in the literal sense of trying to get your power, find your voice, and at the same time being chased and in a very tangled, complicated relationship with death, literally played by Aubrey Plaza, who's amazing. So it was like that tangle was really gnarly and fun and asked a lot.
Yeah, it was fun to watch. Kaylee, I want to come to you because as we talk about powerful women, you got to work with really powerful woman on Night Country.
A little bit.
Casual. You might have heard of her. Her name's Jodie Foster. I was gonna say, kind of an up and comer. But I would really love to know what that's like going toe to toe with a legend like that, especially as you start pivoting into acting. I mean, she's Jodie I almost swore.
Yeah.
Foster. But talk to me about going toe-to-toe with her. What kind of leadership did she bring, and what kind of experience did you take from?
I mean, first and foremost, just being a fan.
Yeah.
Being a fan of her work and not even knowing that I'd end up in the same industry as her, because that was not in my thoughts. I thought it was gonna, be just a normal person. That didn't happen. So when Jodie Foster walked in the room, it was, I was nervous as hell, but she had this warm embrace of, I'm just so excited to be here and learn everybody's process and what your perspective is. What's the best way we can tell this story? I mean, she wears so many hats as far as being a director, an artist, a mom, a friend, of everything. So she brought all that to the table. It wasn't you're the student, I'm the teacher, I've been here, you just got here. She was just so excited to tell this story, and she's very particular on what work she does. So the fact that she chose this project, and I was her partner in this, and we were all partners in trying to just tell the best story. It was a great, we laughed, we cried, we talked about so many different things, but mostly we laughed on, we're in, I'm sure you guys seen the show, but there's some serious scenes in there where she's cussing my character out, and in between we're getting yelled at by Issa, well, shooting Rachel, okay, sorry. But it was, and just the collaboration to see her work with Issa and see her put her director's hat on, have these ideas and have, that wasn't the best idea, we can make this better. It was a great experience. I couldn't ask for anything better, and especially this being my third job. So that was amazing.
Casual.
That was amazing.
I mean, it's incredible.
Well, and I want to talk about that too. You mentioned it being your third job. Obviously, you come from the boxing world, and this is kind of broad here, but one thing I'm really curious about, I actually started boxing myself earlier this year. I should say boxing with a bag. I'm afraid to take a punch. I'm not at that level yet. But what I have found is that there's a really particular rhythm that you need to get into with boxing. There's a really, it's a physical thing. And I'm kind of curious how that translated for you for acting. Do you have to find your own rhythm that way? Is there a physical yes, there's a physical element to it, but how do you kind of find your rhythm in there?
Well, through life, not even just boxing, I've always I admire people who are successful at what they do, no matter what they do. So I admire, and I usually take the information and make it work for myself. If there's something that somebody accomplished, and I'm I want to do that. I don't want to imitate them. I just want to take the bits and pieces and find out how it works for me. So that's exactly what I did with boxing and then transition to acting. I can watch a movie, I'm a fan of movies, but I didn't go to school, I don't have any formal training, so I just really absorbed everything and made it work for me. I just need to know a goal. What is the goal? It's to get this scene, it's to tell the story, it's to win the fight. So I just translated that right into it. With fighting, you have to prep. Prep is everything. With acting, with telling stories, prep is everything. The more information you have, the better. So just really, my prep was, I love creating backstories I didn't know about my characters. That is my prep. That is my hitting the bag. That is my jump rope. That is my sparring. So I really just took that prep. And what I know as the fight world is just, you don't really know what the fight's going to be like until the bell rings. I really don't know what it's going to be like to work with other actors until the camera goes on. Right. So as long as I'm good and I have my prep, I go in there, and then if it's not anything like I thought it was going to be, I got to be flexible and be on my toes to be able to kind of, just adjust. And if I have my backstory, my prep, I got this.
So exactly what it is. Woo. So awesome.
Well, and Judith, I want to come to you because you've been in this industry a long time. You've done a bunch. And you're still doing a bunch right now. I just want to know, are you sleeping? Are you getting any free time to relax a little bit?
No. That's okay.
That's okay, as long as you love what you do. I want to talk about the element of who you work with, right? Because we've talked about working with people like Jodie Foster, people you admire. Obviously, Kathryn got to work with just a bunch of friends. You get to work with a longtime friend now, before, in Billy Crystal. I want to know, I got really emotional really quickly, but I want to know what this experience has been for you. When you know someone so long, you have this comfort level with them. How does that change things for you when you step onto a set?
Because you, just like you just said, you never know what's going to happen. When the bell rings, you don't know what it's going to be. So even though you know somebody for a long time and you're friends, you still don't know what's going to happen when you get in there. And so when we were doing this, things started to happen that we weren't even really aware of. But the consistency of the relating underneath was so comfortable. And there were so many things, and as you'll see as the episodes go on, they're not, you can't binge it yet. There's only 7, I think, that have dropped. And you don't really find out exactly what's happened in this show before that I did for Apple with Billy Crystal. And you find out at the end, and then you begin to see how problematic it could have been, but because you're with someone that you know and you love and there's comfort in that, you actually can have this incredible freedom. I mean, like Kathryn and I have worked together, and it's like such a joy when you, over time, when you know somebody and you have that kind of relating with them, that there's an intimacy that is not comfortable where you don't express and really push yourself. But because there is comfort, you can go farther. You can push yourself into a different place with that person. And we came to really love each other in a very deep way. Our friendship expanded because of this.
I love that for you. One thing I also want to ask, again, I want to go a little broad here, because another project you have out right now on Disney Plus, it's a movie called Out of My Mind. It is such a sweet film, and in it, you play a character who is just delightful. I was telling you earlier, you remind me of a neighbor that I have, that I talk to every single time I walk my dog, but she's a real champion for our lead character, Melody. She's a real, she's a cheerleader, she just wants the best for her. And I'm curious if you don't have to name names, but have you had that someone in the industry for you? Have you had someone that's been a cheerleader throughout your career, maybe multiple people? Have you had someone have your back like that?
I've had a lot of people have my back, but I have a really, I had a teacher in high school, and she was so there for me in the most remarkable way. And I don't even know, it was almost as though like my guardian angel had come down into the form of Ruth Strand, and she just really took care of me. And I kept saying, I wanted to be in this business. She said, it's really gonna be hard. It's really gonna be, she never enabled me, which is the character that's in this show. In the show Out of My Mind, it's about this young girl has cerebral palsy. And she's a remarkable actor. We found her in London, and she's incredible. And so I took some of that, of what I knew from Ruth, and brought it into myself for that character. But that's really, there's many other people that have been there along the way. You know how people get awards and they say, I'd like to thank all the people who treated me like shit. I'm sorry. It's like I'd like to, because it made me work so much harder. But the truth is, I've had a lot of people who have been there for me in really generous and amazing ways. So that's really how I hold it. It's like I hold them very close, and I'm very, nothing in our business is a given. We know that. We've been doing this a long time, but what's really valuable is that you feel grateful. We were just backstage talking about how we've done all these different things and how grateful we get to be for the careers that we've had, and that we get to be here with all of you because of the stuff that we've done. So I'm very grateful to a lot of people who've really been there for me.
We are grateful to you and to all of you for being here. You guys are all incredible. June, I cannot not come to you. I know, I see you over there. First leading role at 94. Can we please just give it up for June?
Totally.
Just
Incredible.
such an incredible film. In case you haven't seen it, it's called Velma. Please watch it. It's delightful. It's like Mission Impossible, but led by June Squibb, which is just inarguably cooler. I'm sorry. I'm not going to... But I want to know, it's been a long time coming for your first leading role, and I just want to know, how was the experience for you? You have so much, a lot of people are thrust into their first leads, and they're a little bit newer, but you have so much experience behind you, and I want to know how that impacted this for you.
Very little, really. No, I keep saying, I did the same preparation. I went into it the same way, with the same nerves, first day. And, it didn't seem to me that strange. And also, I have to admit that I think every role I've ever done, I assumed was the most important in the
Yes.
film. I don't think I've ever done
It was.
the
It was.
smallest role was
Right.
the most important thing in that film. And that's how I've, gone through my career. So it didn't seem that strange to me. It was fun.
Yeah.
And, all at once you're number one, and that's different. It is different. But I don't know. It didn't hit me, really,
Well, when you are number one on the call sheet like that, I'm curious for you, when you step onto set, what is the vibe that you want to set, right? Because when you're number one on the call sheet, it's kind of up to you to be the leader, to set the tone, to set the vibes, to make sure that everyone's just feeling good. You don't have to control everything, but you really kind of have to set the mood.
Yeah.
So how did you approach that? What was the most important thing for you?
I think just being on time and knowing my lines.
Right.
That's simple.
I mean,
get back to the
thought,
basics.
if I know my lines at my age, then by God, they can know their lines.
Absolutely.
Well,
Right?
June, you and Kathryn have something in common. If memory serves, you both came up through the Cleveland Playhouse early on in your
Yes,
career.
yes.
We've got some Midwesterners up here, guys. That's why they're all so nice. But I would be interested from both of you, and Kathryn, I'll start with you. I would be interested in how that impacted your career, right? Because personally, I believe the Midwest is a little bit overlooked. Biased, but whatever.
I mean, yes, so grew up in Cleveland. I knew there was no, is there a Clevelander in the house?
Yes.
Woo!
Oh, wow.
There was no option. I don't know if you got, you're different, but like in terms of starting later, which I have so many questions about, how that pivot happened. Okay. But I knew from like the second, I feel like I was in kindergarten that this is what I wanted to do. And the Cleveland Playhouse was always this like beacon downtown. And for me, it was because there was a rep company. And in an old school rep company, that you would see the same actors do, like, Noises Off one night and Richard III the other. And so my parents had season passes, and then there was a curtain puller program that I enrolled in. Didn't get to actually pull an actual curtain, but that was my...
Feels misleading, but okay.
That was like my church. I mean, I would go there every Saturday for classes, and I would be able to hang out with these older actors. My snack would be literally like a Snickers and a Coke from the machines. And I think of it still as the most holy place. So it's like a little black box theater, then they had like a ghost lamp on it. And like when I picture that in my mind, it's like what, like the core of the core of the core is being in an ensemble. And feeling that freedom of weirdly being able to tell the truth in ways that I couldn't even articulate in my real life as a human yet. The Cleveland Playhouse was huge.
Well, what years were you there in Curtain Pullers?
I was there in probably 80, 70, 80.
Yeah, 'cause I was there in the 50s. I went right after high school, and I went in as an apprentice, and then the next year I was that half apprentice thing where you got a little bit of money. And then for 3 years I was on staff there. But we were non-union then. We weren't, and I think by the time you were there, and Curtain Pullers was there then.
They actually...
Yeah. I mean, they did a lot. They did a lot
Yeah.
with the young people. And I remember we always did matinees, or Shakespeare. We did matinees for school kids over and over again.
Yes.
But don't you find that when you're in repertory theater, like you were just speaking about it with such reverence, is that it teaches you about ensemble?
Oh,
yeah.
Do you know
completely,
what I mean?
completely,
So that
yeah.
when you go into this part of the business that we're in right now, it's like
Yeah.
wherever you go, you have the understanding of ensemble. You know that from the boxing work. There's an ensemble, there's a group, there's a, even though you're number one on the call sheet, you have a different kind of reverence for the community.
I can
No,
always
it's
tell a Midwesterner because they pick up their costumes, they're in control of their props, and there's an autonomy, like I just feel like that they don't need a lot of like handling.
Right.
Like you can take care of your own stuff.
Right.
East Coast too.
East
Yes.
Coast too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
And you're right, that feeling of an ensemble and being able to, so in terms of being like number one, it constantly, you know that it is constantly shifting. You can go from that to an ensemble to back.
One time you were very important, the next time you weren't.
You're not.
Yeah.
That's right.
Exactly.
No, right. I just went from 2 to 20.
Yeah.
Well, but this leads me into something I wanted to talk about, because each of you have been at different places on the call sheet in various projects, and I'm really words are a thing I do professionally, you guys, and I'm just gonna trip up them. Kaylee, I want to come to you on this because I'm interested in knowing, and I want everyone to weigh in here, but I'll start with you, Kaylee. What does good leadership look like to you? No matter where you are on the call sheet, no matter where you are in the ensemble, what does good leadership look like?
To me, a good leader is someone who didn't mean to be a leader. You know, I just think that when somebody just has the core values of making sure that the goal or whatever, that everybody's taken care of, you know, I identify a lot with like wolves and being a wolf pack. You know, the leader's in the back to make sure everybody's okay first. That's usually what, to me, is a good leader. And somebody who's not, you know, throwing around their authority, telling you do this, is kind of somebody who's really open to suggestions. And when everything's on the table, we all come together to try to make sure that this is the best choice. Collectively, I think that makes a great leader.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Judith, one thing I want to ask you is, there was a quote from you that I saw recently, and you said, when I started my career, I said I'd never do a soap opera and I'd never do a sitcom.
This keeps haunting me.
Listen, best laid plans, but I'm really
Right?
interested.
I mean, right? It's like you can't
I'll
say
never
never
do that.
about anything. Of course, I did both of them.
Well, and it sounds like a cliche, right? Because you ask about, you know, would you come back for a character? Would you do this show? And the answer is always never say never. I'm really interested for you, what's kind of been the best thing you've learned from taking on something that you said you would never do?
That I shouldn't say never about anything. I mean, that, and also that the things that I look down on, which is what it really was that was on me. That was pejorative and discouraging and disproportionate to the work that was actually being done. And when I got on the soap opera, I mean, it was an ensemble. And I said, these people are working so hard to do an hour of television every single day. And it's like, I'm going, I don't want to be a part of this. I don't want to be, it's like, who are you? And it really was transformational for me in relation to who I was and the way I was being in the world and who I was being. Because, you know, we're human beings. We're not human doings, you know. And I realized, I was like, who are you? Who do you want to be in the world? And don't be that person. And so that was really important for me, and taking responsibility for the way I was relating around different things like that. And it was the same thing. And I learned so much. My best friend is still my best friend from One Life to Live. When I got on the sitcom, it was the same thing. I was like, do this. And, you know, it's like, I thought I'd learned my lesson, and then I went, no, you actually haven't learned it, so now, like, look at it again. And I learned so much about comedy and timing from Tony Danza. It was just, and from those writers. And so all of that was, you know, it's like if you're the same today as you were yesterday, you're not growing. And what was important to me was to be able to grow. I mean, we're here for such a long and a short period of time. It's like, how are we going to relate? Who are we going to be? And those two things that I said I'd never do, actually to grips with who I wanted to be as a person. And I love what you said about leadership. I think that's really valuable. A good leader keeps people safe and doesn't try to control. And that's really of great value. So thank you for that. Thank you.
Please. I'm never going to cut off clapping. We love up here. You talk about growing and kind of figuring out who you are through this industry, and obviously both you and June, you guys have been in this industry a long time, and I would just love to kind of hear from your perspective how things have changed. Do you think certain things have changed for the better? Is there anything that you think is kind of backsliding that we maybe need to work on? June, I'll come to you on this one.
Well, I do think that things are better. I think that the whole diversity, age, etc., has, I think audience want to see everything. Totally. They don't want to be told this is reality if it's not, you know. And so I think that they're leading us probably. But I think the industry is following. It's taking a long time, but it's working, I think.
Good. Judith, for you, I mean, how are you feeling about changes that we have seen? You mentioned earlier that obviously your show before, you can't watch all of it. Yeah, it's one of the few weekly releases, and that's a major thing that's changed, is now you can just binge things. So I'm curious for your perspective as well.
I'm in agreement with June. I also think that they're starting to relate to women in a much more dynamic way, and I think it's because we've owned our power in relating around who we are. And instead of just stepping back and saying, oh, that's okay, you know, okay, so I'm not getting those parts, and the same with age, it's like, no, we are here and we are a force, we are to be reckoned with. And you will, it's like, and there's this great line from Death of a Salesman. When Linda says to her boys, she says, she's talking about her husband in this beautiful play called Death of a Salesman, and she says, attention must be paid. And I think that's who we are now. It's like attention must be paid. People want to see people of our ages and diversities because it is the world. And finally, the industry is really, they're not catching up with us. They're listening. They're listening, and they're paying attention, and it's about time.
And that's one thing I love as a viewer, is it feels like, especially female characters, they're allowed to be more things now. I mean, Kathryn, when you mentioned at the top of this, Agatha got to be everything, and characters in general, they're allowed to be messy and chaotic and fun and still figuring their things out. And Kaylee, obviously you got to work with that on Night Country. What does that mean to you as an actress, to be able to really finally get into these nuances and these layers and put them on screen for people?
Well, for me, being a East Coast, Cape Verdean, indigenous, two-spirit woman, I did not grow up seeing my face. You know, the first time I saw felt seen was Edward Scissorhands, because he was so damn different. You know what I mean? I have him tattooed on my leg. That was the first time. Like, he just wants to be part of the community. They think he's so different, but when he can provide for them, they want to be like this, and like, oh no, he has scissors for hands. So, but there was a whole thing. It was like a whole thing. But like, just being able to like really be an example of, this wasn't in my plan, but it was in somebody's plan. And it's in somebody's, whether it's an elder, whether it's a little girl, little boy, little whatever, that finally sees me. It started in the boxing ring. We don't have a lot of indigenous or ethnic or people of color, women of color, especially women of color in boxing. Like in a male-dominated sport, like to be the first woman to be on HBO boxing and then be an indigenous woman on HBO, it's just, things that work in parallel. So it means a lot to me, and it's never ever about just me, oh, look at me, look at me. It's like, okay, what can I do for the community? What can I do? What is that person sitting there like, there's nothing else for me. They're in an isolated community, and they see me on doing things that they never thought anybody could do. That just means a lot to me, and it just, kicking the doors open, but leaving them open is really important for me, for everybody to walk through, whether it's a woman of color, whether it's whatever you see, just being able to feel seen and feel included. And also to be able to listen to what stories need to be told and tell them from the different perspectives, and just not just telling indigenous stories, not just telling people of color stories or Cape Verdean stories, but being that good to be able to sit at the table, to be able to sit up with you and have these conversations is really important, because there's somebody out either in the audience or just going to watch this is going to be like, wow, I can do that. So it's just really important for me to do the work and just be and sit at the table and get really comfortable, because we are here. We've been here.
And she's being modest because she also writes. So like, you're putting these stories on screen because you're incredible. So I just want to make sure everyone knew that she's being very modest right now. Guys, we are getting really close on our time here, and it breaks my heart. I want to go down the line, because one thing, you've all had such incredible projects, and I would love to know, and Kathryn, I'll start with you, and we'll go all the way down. If you could go back and read the script to any of your projects, whether it's a TV episode, whether it's a film that you've done, but if you could go back and read any script for the first time ever, experience it completely fresh, and get that feeling again, which would it be?
It would be Private Life, which is a movie I did that was written and directed by Tamara Jenkins. And that first reading was one of those where you had to put it down, and it was so breathtakingly personal. It's about a couple that's going through fertility issues. And it's me and it was Paul Giamatti and myself. And that experience and that first read I would love to experience again. Yeah.
Kaylee, for you.
I mean, I would say the obvious would be True Detective Night Country. That the way she constructed that entire story. But I will go back to my very first film, which I read a script for the first time. Never read a script.
Oh my God.
And it wasn't Catch the Fair One. It was a script about an idea that myself and the director Joseph had about, which ultimately became Catch the Fair One. But I was just kind of opened up into a world of, okay, this is how you experience what we see on screen.
Oh my
and it just
gosh.
opened up a bunch of ideas. And then when I got asked to help write it, I'm like, oh, I got ideas. And just, so just to experience that and just realize that there's endless perspectives and just ways you can tell stories, and things don't work, but you can replace it. This thing is not reality, but it's based in real experiences, the made up circumstances. So I would go back to just having a whole thick paper script that I got to print out and read. And I'm like, what is this? What is INT? Okay, nighttime. External, internal, why are these pages? What is the scenes? I had so many questions.
Judith, for you, what would be your choice?
It would be a play that I did back about 20 years ago, and it was called Wit.
Oh,
And
I saw you in that, Judith.
you did?
Light.
Oh.
So
They really don't
good.
get along, guys.
I love you, Hahn. You're so sweet. It was this play, and it was written by a woman named Margaret Edson, and she won the Pulitzer Prize for it, and she only wrote this one play. And everybody said to her, are you going to write another play? Because this is so extraordinary. It's about a woman who was dying of 4th stage ovarian cancer. And I had to shave my head and be naked on stage, 2 things I also said I'd never do. I'm so not trustworthy. And so, and that play, when I read it, I was reading it, and I was in my office, and I was reading it, and I'm reading it, and I'm just absolutely dissolved by the brilliance of this creation. And at the end it says, and she takes off one baseball cap, and she takes off her one hospital gown, she takes off another hospital gown, and it says she is naked and beautiful in the light. And I close the play, and I'm sobbing, and I go, she is what? And I go, I don't think I can do this. And when I read that, it's still breathtaking, and it still holds up, this play. They do it in lots of different places, but it's very, very special. It's really beautiful. Really beautiful. Yeah.
I love it. And June, finish us off. What would be yours?
I guess Nebraska.
Yes.
Yeah. It was the second film with Alexander, and it just reading the script, I still remember the feeling of just reading that script.
Right.
And the role that I was, going to be used for, and it would just knock me out. It did then, and I'm sure now it still would.
I love it. Guys, I'm so happy that you were on stage with us. I'm so happy that you joined us. And we still have a little bit of time. I'm so excited. So I would also ask, and I will open this up to anyone who wants to jump on it, who feels really passionate about it. Obviously, we have a bunch of incredible women in this room who all want to do different things with their lives. Maybe they all want to do similar things. I would just, as a human being, what is a piece of advice that you would like to offer the folks here? And anyone who wants it.
have two quick pieces that come to mind. When you're in doubt, don't.
Yes. Right.
And that I wish that I could go back to my younger self and not give a shit so much about whatever anyone else would think.
Yep.
And really, really trust in your own voice, your beautiful face, your beautiful body, your beautiful selves, because that's actually your superpower. It's not.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Any parting words? I don't want to cut anyone off here.
Yeah.
You just find out who you are and go with it.
Yeah. Absolutely. I would say, remember that if you choose this business, that this is a service business. That whatever you do, whatever stories you're telling, whatever people you're working with, you are in service to them and to the people who are going to get to see it. So that's number one for this work and for life. And also to be grateful. It's so important to be grateful. You know, sometimes we look at things and we say, oh God, how come I'm not doing that? Or why am I not? Comparing yourself is absolute nonsense. Thoroughbred horse runs its own race. Just keep yourself in your own lane. But gratitude, I think, is really, really important.
You stay in your own lane, there's no traffic, right?
That's right, baby. That's right.
Well, on that note, guys, we are grateful to you. Ladies, we are grateful to every single one of you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you.
A pleasure. Give it up. Please come to more, guys.
Thank you so much.
And now, let's take a short